Hi guys, welcome to Flowcast, a podcast by Flowout where we chat with successful entrepreneurs, freelancers, and other amazing professionals that are crushing it in their game. We are Flo and Peter, and we'll be your host on this audio journey. In this week's episode, we'll talk with Jamey Gannon, creative director and designer at Praxis. We'll get to know Jamey, who is going to share her vision on building brands, AI entering the design world, and going from 0 to 1. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
To kick this episode off, tell us a bit about your background and your journey to the point you are right now.
So I'm actually self-taught. My background is actually I originally came into the industry as a freelance designer, so just using stuff like Upwork and Fiverr. Next step for me was I started a company called Continuum with my co-founder Jason. It ended up becoming a Web3 edtech social platform. People could learn everything from design to how to interact with crypto and other business skills. And then I left that this summer to go back to pursuing freelancing and branding again. So I freelance with mainly Web3 companies, doing branding and product.
So you said you're self-taught and you didn't go through any formal design education. How did you go about this? Did you watch YouTube tutorials, like Udemy courses, or?
Yeah, so mainly YouTube. Probably the most channel I watched the most when I was kind of learning was The Future and Christo, which I can't recommend enough. But yeah, mostly YouTube, mostly practice.
Yeah, the future is great. It was also my introduction to design and marketing and everything around it. Great stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And were you always passionate about creative things?
No. So in high school, when I was 14, 15, I really wanted to go into journalism or politics or law. And then I guess I kind of just decided to switch to design, mainly because I found out, how much college costs, especially in America. And I wanted to have more freedom with my career, and doing something like law or journalism is a very cookie cutter path, at least for the first 5-6 years that you're in it. So I wanted to do something more open and creative, like design.
Okay, so did you kind of find the love for design accidentally?
What did you say exactly?
Yeah, if you found the love for design accidentally, or was
I had taken a design class in high school that I thought was kind of dumb, and I was like, oh, this is easy, this is very intellectual. But then when I started getting into the future, and I kind of got into design, let me make a collage, or let me just do something fun. So it was somewhat accidental. But another thing that I realized a couple of years ago is that I used to run fan pages for boy bands and different music artists, the whole Tumblr era. And I designed so many posts and little collages and graphic art then. And I think it's funny how I just kind of blocked it out of my mind for 5 years. So I guess yes and no. Yeah.
You did this on Tumblr?
Yeah. But I have Instagram pages and Twitter pages.
All right. Okay. Got it. And what are you currently working on now?
So I'm still freelancing. I guess my most recent project that I'm working on is called Shop Through, and they basically enable Shopify stores to integrate Web3 enabled rewards that you can, say you get a reward from Equinox for spending $500 a year. You can, depending on who they partner with, can transfer those rewards to different stores, and it's really cool.
Oh, that's cool. At Flowout, we are also deep our toes into Shopify. So exciting stuff. Yeah. You went viral with the term lazy designer on TikTok. Tell us more about it.
Yeah. It's been a while since I made it. I mean, I think at the time I was just on my content grind for both Continuum, because I was doing all of our marketing and content, then also trying to grow my personal account. It probably just came as a funny idea. I'm sure it might have been inspired by someone else's video, but yeah, it just kind of came from the trial and error of making content, and then it kind of stuck. And I was like, okay, this is actually very me, and a lot of people like it. So I made maybe 5 or 6 of them, and ended up actually working with Figma and having some of them be sponsored. So that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose creating content that's relatable is always the way.
Yeah.
Do you have any more tips for how designers can optimize their time?
Optimize time. I think like time blocking is good. So I mean, I'm honestly so bad at optimizing time, but yeah, working on one project at a time. Also, if you're a freelancer, it's gonna take me a while to learn is like, don't take the kind of like pixel pusher gigs, which I still find myself doing. Like, don't take these small gigs that you're like, oh, it's not that many deliverables and the budget's kind of small, but I'll get it done in a week. It never happens that way. The small budget projects are always the ones that have the most like revisions and take the most time. So I'd recommend sticking with like a fewer amount of bigger projects. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you don't have to manage your time as well.
Definitely useful advice also for all the developers out there. And just tracking back to the social media stuff, what did you gain from that TikTok experience? Any new customers, a new cloud, new audience that you reached?
I don't think content ever really got me that many clients per se. I think my Twitter content gets me more clients. Yeah, I think it obviously enabled me to build a community for my startup, which was like, I think, a really cool asset. I got to meet a lot of cool people. It's very fun. It's very validating to get followers on social media. And it was just like really self-fulfilling mostly. Yeah, I got most of my clients, even like back then, from Twitter and through like my network.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned this, getting more clients for Twitter. I guess that's an experience for a lot of people in tech. Also, like some are more successful on LinkedIn. Do you like make separate content depending on the platform? What are some pros and cons of different platforms that you use?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is like its whole own thing. I think with my Twitter content, I definitely am a lot more like anecdotal and even sometimes not related to my career or like to tech or like my audience there. I'm a lot funnier on Twitter. That's kind of the value that I hope to provide there. But on TikTok and Instagram, which I'm not really making content there anymore, it was more so tips and higher value like tutorial kind of stuff. I think my content on Twitter could potentially work with TikTok, but then that's a whole art of like performing it. Yeah, so I would say be more instructional on Instagram and TikTok, and then be like more of a personality on Twitter.
Definitely. Do you learn how to be a better designer yourself from social media as well?
Yeah, that's actually what inspired kind of the original direction my last startup Continuum went in, is because I was self-taught through social media. So YouTube, and then eventually like TikTok and Instagram were like really helpful. And I was making a ton of content on there that was helpful. So I was like, we should make a platform for this. Yeah, totally.
But you actually started out as a brand designer, right? Yeah, and what are the top 3 things you learned while building brands?
Top 3.
And how do you even build a brand?
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a top 3 off the top of my head. I guess I can maybe answer the first or the second one, like how to build a brand. I think it really just comes from speaking to designers. You have to talk to your client a lot. And something I've realized with doing like my questionnaires that I have like half the questionnaire a bit more functional, kind of like, what do you do? What are your goals? Like, what's the business model? Who are your competitors? And then the other half is like almost kind of silly. It's like, if your brand was a movie, what would it be? Like, if your brand was friends with other brands, who would that be? What kind of car would your brand be? Make a playlist for your brand. So I think one thing I've learned from building brands is you have to like go into like the client's emotions a lot, and some of the stuff that you'll find inspiration in things that seem kind of irrelevant. Yeah. And then I guess something else, like a bullet point I always think about with branding is differentiate. That's a big thing that I was reading the Brand Gap by Marty Neumeier for like the 3rd time the other day. and there's like a quote from someone, it's like differentiate or die. Also, sometimes like simplicity can also be differentiating. I think maybe that's like a lazy designer tenet, but yeah, you don't have to have like crazy illustrations and whatnot and spend a ton of time and money developing a huge brand system, because sometimes simple ends up being differentiated, and it's a lot easier, especially like my younger startup clients, to maintain with like a huge illustration library.
And do you like, when you go into this building brand strategy, do you focus just on like elaborating the strategy with your clients, or do you also do a lot of user interview, or at least potential user interviews, and then determine the brand strategy based on their answers and their input?
I honestly have not done a ton of user interviews. The only time I really did a ton of user interviews was with my startup, and that was more kind of like product testing. I don't have any super big takes on having to use interviews. I think at some point it's necessary, but a lot of these like Web3 clients that I work with, I kind of trust that they've done kind of their research, and they're usually people that have experienced the problem themselves. And then usually because I'm working like in Web3, I can kind of empathize and understand the market a little bit. But I'm sure that there's some like really great designer at some big tech company that has an entire book on why you should use interviews. So maybe listen to them.
Got it. But can you tell us a bit more about how did you build your own startup? Like, how did you build a brand around your startup?
Yeah. Building a brand was like almost dramatic for the startup, because it's so hard building a brand for something that is yours. So I think the best thing that we ever did was hire like even some of my friends to just do the strategy and be kind of like an outsider that is able to kind of like decipher and look in, because you just get so lost in the sauce. So I think, I mean, this is great for business, but if you're like a startup founder, definitely at some point you need to outsource. You can get like a clear perspective, an outside perspective on like what the brand should be. So I struggled a lot with that. Now it looks great. I think the brand is like doing well, and it got to a place where it's good. But yeah, there were many late nights like mood boarding and trying out different logos and fonts, just trying to get it to feel the way I wanted to. And also the strategy was hard because me and my co-founder each wanted like such strong things, and to put like every single benefit that we wanted into like one sentence describing the value of the product was like impossible. So
yeah, definitely. I can fully agree that as a startup founder, you have to outsource at some point and also delegate the work to others. But I think that's also the hardest part, that like you have to learn that like other people don't view your own startup as you do.
yeah, that's a big one.
And is there any unique trick you approach to picking out brand colors?
I usually just take my colors from the mood board. I'm honestly not the best at color theory. I wish I was better. That's one thing I constantly notice. I'm like, I see my vision, but I just can't get it like scientifically to look right. Also using something like coolers is nice. I think it has 3 O's. Basically you can like put a color and you can lock certain colors in, and then just like space bar, and it'll like shuffle a bunch of different color palettes. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, but I would say try and be more conceptual about it. I think there's like some rules with color, like, oh, like blue means trustworthy, and green, you know, typically means, you know, stuff about the environment or growth or whatever. But yeah, like my current client, my instinct was to go blue. And then I asked him, like, you know, is there any particular color in your mind? And he went on this whole tangent about using this blue. And I was like, okay, nice. You start to kind of like get a sense, like a sixth sense for branding at some point. But then also he mentioned like he really loves this one artist, and like the brand of that current artist is actually going in a blue direction now. So it's nice to kind of tie in some meaning, even if it's kind of silly for your clients. I also had another client, Peas. I asked him like what they definitely wanted their brand to have. We were like at an in-person branding meeting at like this really cool bar in Manhattan, and they just like blurt out the hex code that they wanted, which I thought was hilarious. So yeah, sometimes I let the client, it's nice to give clients ownership over the color sometimes because they can like kind of have that, but they definitely cannot pick fonts. That's some of them.
Yeah, I think it's fun that you said you do clients meetings in the bars. I guess it's
Yeah.
very important for them to be relaxed so they can talk about their expectation about the brand, which is obviously a lot of time perceived as something personal, like your startup
Yeah.
brand is also a part of you. Do you have any like techniques to get this information out of your clients?
Yeah, I've only actually been able to do like a branding meeting at a bar one time, but I was like, I just want them to get loose and like, start talking about like what they're really passionate about. And it worked. They got like so cute and just like making all these like crazy analogies. But most of my meetings are just over the phone. But I guess the technique I do is I give the client the questionnaire in advance, and I tell them to, they can like use the Figma board to like write down anything, answer any questions that kind of like really, pull at them and like drop any inspiration. And I think it's so funny to see and really interesting. A client will fill out the question a certain way when they're alone, and then like when they're talking to you, say it an entirely different way. So I like giving clients the option on how they want to express themselves. Yeah. So I think most clients usually like doing kind of like the over the phone or in person talking. But I've had sometimes where I get better insights from a certain person when they're just like alone and like writing enough time to kind of like think and jam, not on the spot.
Yeah, that's a useful insight to be prepared already with the questionnaire info. I want to piggyback off of what Peter asked before about the brand colors. What about typologies? How do you pick and match them?
Usually what I'll do is I'll type out the word, and then I'll just like use all the fonts, and I'll go through like usually in Adobe because Figma has like a terrible font picker, and I'll just pick the ones that seem relevant to me, and then I'll go through and it'll be like 25, then I'll narrow down to like 10, and then like 3 or 4. Yeah, it's usually kind of instinct. I find myself using a lot of the same fonts. I'm trying not to do. Keep using Man Rope for some reason, which I don't even like that much. Yeah, so sometimes I have like a pretty clear vision. But other times I have to kind of go through and find the right font.
Yeah, I think a lot of designers can relate that when you find that one font, you just can get rid of and use them for every project.
Yeah.
Addicting.
Yeah.
But has this always been your approach? And just in general, how has your approach, your process to building brands changed over the time?
I think it's just because I did brand building when I was like 18, like almost 3 years ago, and then I had like my startup, and then I started again this summer. So I kind of a whole different person. So I don't know if I've seen it changed a lot, but I do want it to. I want it to get better. So I'm going back to like my branding books and I'm trying to find better processes. I think I'm just a lot more relaxed now for sure than when I was younger and first starting. I remember like my very first branding client ever, it was like an $800 client that was like corporate constructing in like Dubai or something. And I was so by the book of like these like 5 future videos. And it didn't leave me much room to like have my own style or get what I wanted out of it. So being flexible, I think, is something that's big for me now.
Yeah, client stories are always useful learning experience. How do you nowadays get new clients?
Mostly through Twitter or like an event that's somewhat Twitter adjacent. So typically I'd like kind of like happy hours or like crypto or tech events, and then just through tweeting just like the most outrageous stuff. Like I got my last client because I tweeted something about Web3 scaring the hoes, and like in theory like you would think like, okay, no professional person with money is gonna like want to interact with this tweet. But no, I got me my last client because they really enjoyed like what I was talking about, the sentiment, and it was interesting, and it, you know, popped up in their feed and got a lot of likes. So the algorithm liked it. Yeah, Twitter mainly. And sometimes friends, like through my network.
Do you usually like get the DM and then close the deal over a call? What are the final steps?
Yeah, usually they'll DM me, ask me if I, you know, do X, Y, and Z, and then I'll send them my calendar, they'll go on a call. Lately, a lot of people have been, funny enough, like they all want to start in like freaking late February or March. That's going to be interesting to see how I handle that. But yeah, usually we like discuss and then like back and like decide, okay, yes, and then contract, deposit, and start.
Nice, thank you for sharing that. We kind of glossed over another theme before that I want to get back to just a bit. Design processes. It sounds very complex to someone who's not that familiar with the design. How complex is it actually to set them up for like a company?
I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about this at the beginning. I'm kind of a lazy designer. I don't have like a strict process. I mean, when we talk about like product design process is a bit different because, you know, we'll get on a call, we'll do some discovery, user journey map, you know, I'll start to define some like, okay, this is what the button's gonna look like. This is what like the bigger text is gonna look like. But usually, so I'll kind of have like a base level, even with branding. Like, okay, I know I'm gonna use this font, I know I'm gonna use these colors, and I know that like this is gonna be like a design motif that I use. And then usually once I get into it, I have to go back and I'm like, okay, wait, this size does not look good. And like, okay, I have to add a whole other heading section because of like the way this page is set up. So I don't spend a lot of time at the beginning. I kind of rush through it and then just get into it and then kind of like backtrack and fix and finalize later. Yeah, so I just found my curiosity and I just start. I think more experienced designers, they might have like a better process where it's like, okay, I know I'm going to do branding, so let's spend like the first like 3 days just fleshing out the type styles. I usually kind of work in tandem and see, you know, what inspires me.
All right, so basically, design, like setting up design process is not something you do prior building a brand, but you iterate all the way, like along the way.
Oh, yeah, design systems. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize what you were talking about. Yeah, I honestly don't have too much experience setting up like very strict design systems because I'm usually like the only designer at the company. So I kind of just like do, like, I know what it is, so I just do it. But yeah, towards the end is when I like finalize things for sure.
All right, got it. Yeah, and I want to move to a super popular topic lately, AI. What are your thoughts on ChatGPT, Midjourney, and other AI tools entering the design world? Do you use them?
I don't, but I think that I need to. But I'm just like too lazy to learn like how to write the correct prompts. Yeah, I think it's really cool. I tried asking ChatGPT 3, GT, whatever it's called, like do a brand strategy based on like Marty Numera's teachings or something. And it was okay. It like spit out like a pretty generic like thing. So I think it might be good for creating like client docs or like resources to give them. Definitely content. I think if I ever get back into content, like maybe this spring, I'm hoping it's going to be a gold mine. I think I'm really interested to use it for like creative direction or like mocking up things. Yeah, I haven't felt like a huge need to it, but I think it's cool, and I think there's going to be a lot of AI clients.
Yeah, are you already afraid of losing your job due to ChatGPT?
No, honestly, not really. I don't know. I feel like I have some like better takes on this, and there's better takes on why like AI won't take over art. Maybe branding. I'm just not. I can't be bothered to worry about that right now. But I do want to look into kind of like the, you know, reality of like, okay, here's why you shouldn't be scared because of like these philosophical reasons, and here's why you should be scared because of these like, you know, actual reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think AI will actually replace designers and developers. It will just the style of work will change. Like the AI like ChatGPT and Midjourney will just be a part of a daily workflow for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe from what I've heard, it's so great for developers if they want to like change languages, or I mean, I don't know the developer workflow, but it saves them like hours of time. So I imagine, yeah, there's just gonna be a lot more like overlap, I guess, too, between careers. So like if AI gets good enough to start like writing websites or doing like UI design, like they'll still be designers, but we'll just be the people wielding power in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And did you actually did any related AI related project yet, like for any clients that do AI?
Trying to think. I think I might have a couple like clients in my pipeline, essentially people I've talked to in the last couple weeks. But I have noticed a couple of clients be like, oh yeah, and you know, when you're doing this feature, there'll be a ChatGPT option for people to fill out, like help them fill out this. So I'm noticing clients like integrate it more, but no true AI clients yet.
All right. And how do you think like the AI will impact the design world, the future? Like, do you see any direct influence?
I think it's going to be great for ideating. So you can like just type into Midjourney, like make me a product with these features that looks like this, and it'll be able to do like really broad strokes, which I think will be great for like I say, like again, creative direction. I haven't tried it with logo designs yet. I think that might be interesting too. Like oh, you know what I have seen? I have two different products that are the same thing, but they're like Figma plugins that are like probably just like Midjourney, but you type in the subject that you want, and then you can filter by like color, style, what kind of brush stroke it is. That's really cool. So like if you're like a deck designer, for example, and you don't want to do like a ton of illustrations or like pay someone to do that, you could just use like Midjourney to kind of be like placeholder or even final.
Yeah, do you maybe remember the names of those Figma plugins?
Yeah. One is called Majestic, and then one was just released by Diagram, which is Jordan Singer's design tools company.
Nice. Thank you.
Magician. Yeah, they're both called like Magic. But yeah, really cool. I haven't used the one from Diagram yet, but yeah.
Got you. Definitely, it's been said by many that these tools are very useful for idea generation and going from 0 to 1. And even like if we forget about this, and we just want to know, what does it mean to you getting from 0 to 1, and how does design help achieve that?
I mean, I guess it's like very functional. So like you can't raise without a pitch deck, and you need a designer to do your pitch deck. You can't onboard customers without a website. You need a designer to get your website. So I think when I say 0 to 1, it's just like the functional stuff you need to like get started. Maybe I can think of like a bigger, more philosophical answer of like, you know, valuing design early stage of your company. But yeah, I just found that it's a market that I really like, and that I'm good at, and I don't like staying on projects for a super long time. I don't really like growth, so 0 to 1 is cool because I get to make the brand and do all the fun parts of the project. Like people always joke, like starting so many projects but never finishing them. That's like what I made my job. So I like that.
I see. We talked a bit about your journey in the beginning, but it's actually quite impressive. You went to raising over $1 million. Can you tell us a bit more about this without focusing too much on details? And how did you, as a designer, were involved in this process of raising funds?
Yeah. So I found my co-founder because I was looking for clients. So I was in like a community called like Gen Z VCs, looking for startup clients, because even back then I still really liked early stage. And I basically like emailed him and was like, hey, I'm like the perfect fit to work on this product. Like you should hire me to do social media or design. And he did. And then we just kind of hit it off, and he asked me to be co-founder like a weekend. And I honestly, I felt like the sickest feeling in my stomach. I was like, I can't be a co-founder. Like, I can't found a startup, like that's crazy. Like I think my only understanding of like startups at the point were like, I don't know who was like big at the time, but just, like the whole like Facebook story and whatnot. But I was like, I can't do this. But I was so young at the time. I was like either 17, I was either 18 or 17. I think I was 18. And he had raised enough at the time, my co-founder, to give me a salary. And I was like, okay, this sounds great, actually. And then I just kind of like fell into it. I just started watching a ton of videos from like YC and learning about kind of like what VC is and like what it means to run a company. And no one's ever ready. I think that was the thing. I was like, I'm not ready for this. But I'm more ready to run a company back then than I am now. I was like way more focused on my career and like way less things going on in my life and way more discipline. But yeah, I just kind of did it. And then honestly, I got pretty good at, I enjoyed like some of the parts of raising, like learning the pitch and doing the pitch. For the most part, I just really didn't like all the meetings. And I mean, my co-founder said this too. The way we went about it for like the first like year was just like horrific. But yes, we did end up finding the right investors and raising $1 million. One thing I would say, I mean, anyone can raise, like you just have to kind of practice and learn. But if you have a co-founder, definitely have like one person focus on it. That's what we ended up doing towards like the end of our last raise, because it's just too much time and it's not necessary. And I think also because at the time we ended up having very different like visions of the product, so I think that also helped with just like getting the company into place. That was good, because he had like a very clear version of his own goals that like ended up helping us raise. So yeah, I would say let like one person do it, but it was a very cool experience, although I don't think that I want to do it again.
I see. Did you know the idea was worth pursuing from the beginning, or did you have to like validate it through time?
We were very passionate about it at the beginning. It was very exciting. I like remember, kind of figuring out the pivot and how like just working like all hours of the night, building like the MVP of the product. Yeah, so like we were very passionate about it from the beginning. Those are like the best days when like you first start building, and then having to validate it and then shift things around to actually fit the audience, like a whole different thing.
Yeah, definitely. And in startup, you learn a lot, no matter like in which role you are involved. You're basically doing bits of everything. Do you think designers, of course, every designer is different, but do you think designers in general have some qualities that make them like very valuable and good startup founders or like co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be way more design founders. I just think the way that we are so customer driven, like someone that's like good at BD, for example, they don't have to think about the customer that much necessarily. They just have to think about, okay, how can I convince this person to use this product? And once they are given to like the sales team or given to like the onboarding team, it's like over. But I think with designers, yeah, I think we're very smart people. I like designers a lot. And I think that more designer co-founders for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, we got some designers among our co-founders as well. So shout out to the design team. But just one more question on the from 0 to 1 topic. Do you think there's some sort of people who really fall and are made for this? You said before that you prefer it compared to the growth and scaling and so on. What do you need to become a specialist in this from 0 to 1 process?
I mean, I think it's the easier of the two, honestly, but that's just because I like it probably. I think you have to be very creative. So I think like growth people, I haven't done a ton of growth, but I imagine it's like you kind of you're given sort of like a framework and a bunch of stuff to work with, and you just kind of have to improve it and analyze it. And I imagine there's like a lot of like techniques that eventually end up being kind of like, okay, this is the problem. This is typically the solution I've seen in like XYZ companies. But I think with 0 to 1, it's a lot of like problem solving and kind of coming up with things from like the ground up. So I like that part of it, maybe. Yeah. So I guess being creative and being more creative, although I don't really like that word. Yeah, maybe if you're less analytical. So more like left brain as opposed to more right brain. Yeah.
Yeah, to backtrack a little bit. Yeah, I definitely agree. Designers are smart people. I mean, you've been quite on a journey, like raising 1 million for your startup, helping companies go from 0 to 1. I mean, still so young and so full of experiences. But anyways, what advice would you give to your younger self? Like once you've been still in high school and you didn't know you're going to become a designer?
I would say like read more, like more about just fucking anything, pick up a book probably. But I think a lot of my education with like design, I focused a lot on like design, branding, and like these like very, you know, one-way topics that like fit into my idea of becoming a designer. But I think like just reading more books and consuming more media about like art and philosophy and, you know, just kind of being more well-rounded. So I feel like I'm not super well-rounded at this point. No, but honestly, my younger self is working a lot harder than I am now. She has a I wish I could go back to the brain I had then. She did great. She did fine. But yeah, I think she should have read more because now I like have trouble reading. Can't pick up a book. But yeah.
High school is definitely a tough era for reading. Like I didn't know anyone that liked reading in high school.
Well, yeah, and like you're so busy already. So like to pick up like a freaking philosophy book or something a bit more intellectual.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening. But yeah.
Yeah. And what is the best advice you ever heard and how did you implement it?
Ooh. Dang. Best advice I ever heard? Okay, I think this isn't really advice, but when I was in high school, before I discovered I wanted to be a designer, I really wanted to, like I said, to go into politics, journalism, law, like go to like an Ivy League, like do something very, you know, serious academic. And I was reading this article preparing to like take the SATs, which is like the standardized testing in America for college. And basically it said that the acceptance rate for Harvard is not like 6% for everyone. Like there's like 30,000 people that apply. So it's 6% overall, but like your chance of getting in might be 20%, and like your friend's chance might be 10, and your other friends might be 60 or something. And that like really like changed your life because I just never thought about like, I don't know. It was just really interesting to see that basically like just because things are considered hard doesn't mean that it's like hard for you, and just because things are considered easy doesn't mean it's considered easy for you. So like a lot of people say like art is like a really hard career, or like growing up social, like, and anything that's hard, like that doesn't mean that it's necessarily hard for you. Maybe if you're lucky also, but yeah, I don't know how to like wrap that up, but I think like anything's achievable, and having that perspective is it just like blew my mind, but I don't really have like a tidy kind of like analogy for it. I don't know if you guys can help me with that.
Yeah. Read more and focus on your strengths, I guess. We usually finish our podcasts with a series of 5 rapid fire questions. If you're ready. All right. Looking forward to hearing your answer to the first one. It's what's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book? I'm not a big reader as much as I want to be, but probably Zag by Marty Neumeier, if we're talking about like design. Yeah, it just helped me decide to pivot my last startup, and it's just really, really good stuff about branding.
Your favorite podcast?
In general, I watch a lot of comedy podcasts, but something a bit more kind of like productivity growth related, I would say the Rich Roll podcast. Really great stuff about health and motivation and mental health.
Got you. Any recommendation on the comedy genre?
Oh God. I've been watching a lot of Rick Glassman, Theo Vaughn, Whitney Cummings, Tom Segura, Joe DeRosa. Yeah.
All right, love it. Your favorite productivity tool?
Notes app or Notion, but probably Notion. I have like a big Kanban board that I just have like to do, in progress, and completed for the week, and then I hide all the weeks. That's like the only thing that I use.
Most used app on your phone?
Twitter, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to finish it off on the light note, what's your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby, I really like meeting new people and hanging out with friends, but doing a hobby together. I'm like in this, it's like a book club, but it's for a TV show. That it sounds kind of silly, but we just watch the TV show and like talk together and laugh, and it's very heartwarming. I really like doing that lately.
All right, Jamey,
Hanging out.
it was awesome having you on the podcast. We learned so much, and we can't wait to chat again soon.
Yeah, this is super fun. Thank you guys.